Hey guys, welcome to our discussion today about the chart ruler, where Mars is the chart ruler, but this is according to Julius Firmicus Maternus, an ancient astrologer from almost 2,000 years ago. He lived in the year 300 AD, and circa that time, around then. And he has a different understanding of how chart rulers work, and I'm going to present to you how it works so that you know the difference of what is commonly held as opposed to how he approaches it. So I have the chart here of Oprah Winfrey, and we will use this as our reference, okay? I got this chart on astro-seek.com. Now, if you look here, the typical chart ruler, we'd say, is the ruler of the ascendant, okay? And in this case, in 29 degrees Sagittarius, we'd say that the ruler of the ascendant in Oprah's chart would be Jupiter in the seventh house. Now, according to Firmicus Maternus, who has also said in his book that this is well accepted in his time, which is interesting because I've never heard this interpretation before. He said that that's not the chart ruler. In fact, the chart ruler is the next sign over, is the ruler of the next sign over from the moon. Oprah's moon is in Jupiter, and the next sign over is Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, which is in the 12th house. This is Oprah's chart ruler according to Firmicus Maternus. And so that's how we're going to work on it today. That's what we're going to, that's what we mean when we talk about chart ruler and when we have these discussions. So today's discussion is going to be about Mars. So Mars is actually pretty interesting. So it says like this, 13, Mars. Mars as ruler of the chart makes the natives fierce. Makes them fierce, unconquerable, active, quarrelsome, bold, involved in dangers, violent, but liable to be deceived in various ways. That's an interesting addition. They are gluttonous, I guess you can say, because Mars is a very direct planet or direct approach. Deception should be easy for people to get away with regard to them. They're gluttonous and digest food easily. They're brave, just, fiery. They have red hair and bloodshot eyes. That's really cool and interesting to hear, to check that out, because that's a very direct and clear distinction. Somebody has red hair and bloodshot eyes, to see somebody who has a Mars chart ruler with Mars, to see if that's the case. Commanding ways, always seeking positions of power. Their occupations have to do with iron and fire. They are monstrously bad-tempered. That's pretty extreme. Never get on with their wives, children, or friends, and are envious of others' possessions. Wow, sounds intense. Afflictions come from iron and fire, that is, cuts and burns. They often fall from high places and break their arms and legs. They will have a sudden and violent death. This sounds very scary to have a chart ruler in Mars. Okay, number 14, if Mars is an aspect, this is like extreme in comparison to what Jupiter was like. If Mars is an aspect to the full moon, okay, now we're getting specific. So first of all, Mars is a nocturnal planet. So ideally, if your chart ruler is in Mars, you want your chart to be a nocturnal chart. So now, if it's an aspect to the full moon, the native will die a captive of bandits or be accused and handed over to public authorities. Now, I think the distinction here is the full moon, because I think a waning moon is considered good for nocturnal planets. So I think the fact that it's full is not good for a nocturnal planet, and that's why there's these negative elements, although the specifics of dying a captive of bandits or being accused and handed over to public authorities. I guess it sounds very specific, but it makes sense because when it says a captive of bandits, why bandits? We said before that they can be deceived in various ways. So, bandits are the type of people who stand out like in the forest, at least, back then, because I'm giving the scenario that, what's it called? That Julius was trying to mention, Firmicus was trying to say, that their bandits are usually hiding behind bushes or something in a forest, and they ambush you, they trick you, they deceive you. So, that sounds like if something's going wrong with a Mars planet, they'll probably be tricked in some way because they're very direct and they don't understand these roundabout approaches. It says, or be accused and handed over to public authorities, probably because the type of behavior they have is, like we said, very fierce, and quarrelsome, bold. They're not afraid of authority type of thing. So being handed over to the public authorities, makes sense. It says, so we're talking about Mars is an aspect to the full moon. The question is why the moon, why isn't he talking about, let's say, Mars to what would be a greater benefic of Saturn, let's say, assuming that not assuming Mars is in the nocturnal sect, so Saturn would cause damage. So the question is why the moon? The full moon makes sense, but why the moon? And then it says, or persecuted by informers. Informers make sense again because they're the type that will probably do their own thing. He will be sentenced to punishment. If there is influence of the sun, then he'll be publicly burned. Okay, this is really intense stuff. So influence from the sun, I'm assuming it gets worse because Mars is a nocturnal planet. It's also a malefic. So, if a malefic has a negative position of full moon, plus, there's an aspect to the diurnal planet of the sun, then it gets worse, publicly burned. I think that the idea of the public is probably because the sun shines light on it and burned maybe because it's fire. I don't know. So it says these predictions are stronger in a diurnal chart. Okay, so this makes sense in a diurnal chart because Mars is a nocturnal planet, so it gets worse if it's a diurnal chart. If the ruler of the chart is on the first angle or on the MC or on the descendant. Okay, so this is interesting because in previous examples, they said that the implications of angles are the first angles, like the first house, the ascendant or the MC. Now he's including the descendant. I'm wondering if that's in connection to the fact that the descendant is where the sun descends, and maybe Mars being a nocturnal planet, I don't know. But then why does it not include the fourth house, which is the ultimate, nocturnal angle? It's below, it's the middle of the night by the fourth, by the IMC. So anyways, he says, and the full moon on the other angle. So this is actually a very specific formula. It says these predictions are stronger in a diurnal chart if the ruler of the chart is on the first angle, the MC or the descendant, and the full moon on another. So we're talking about full moon, which makes it worse for a nocturnal planet. On another angle in malefic aspect to Mars, or if she is full when she allots the rulership to Mars. Yes, that sounds pretty intense with Mars. Let's see, 15. Okay. In a nocturnal chart, so nocturnal is already better for Mars because Mars is a nocturnal planet. So in a nocturnal chart, let's see the results, because it has a lot of conditions. It says, okay, if we have all of the above, which we'll get to in a second, this will make powerful, fear-inspiring generals or tribunes, ruling great regions and many states entrusted with the control of the whole world. Okay, so if all of the above, which is going to be like good, which will bode well for Mars, then we're still talking about intensity of, being powerful, fear-inspiring generals. They're still fighting and it's still intense, but it's for the positive, right? It's not all the terrible stuff we saw before. So what are the conditions? It's a nocturnal chart, which makes sense for Mars. In a nocturnal chart, if Mars is in the house of Jupiter or Saturn, so this is where it gets weird or really contradictory, at least in terms of my limited understanding of what he's trying to say. It says, in a nocturnal chart, if Mars is in the house of Jupiter or Saturn. So first of all, Jupiter is not the greater benefic here. Okay, we're talking about a nocturnal chart and a nocturnal planet of Mars. The greater benefic should be Venus in this case. So I don't know why there's an emphasis on Jupiter in this case. Clearly, Jupiter is considered better in general, whether it's nocturnal or diurnal, the chart, right? Then it says Saturn. That's weird. Not only is it a diurnal planet, but it's a malefic. So why would it be good if Mars is in the house of Saturn? Interestingly, I know that Mars is exalted in Capricorn, which I guess that sort of makes sense. That's why it could be good in Saturn. I guess for Aquarius, maybe it extends to Aquarius as well. In terms of Mars being in, the house of Jupiter, it doesn't necessarily have a detriment or fall over there. Its detriment, Jupiter's detriment is not Jupiter. What are we talking about? We're talking about Mars. Mars' detriment is in Venus. Its fall is in the moon sign of Cancer. Okay, so yeah, so this is a little confusing. Why we're talking about Jupiter instead of Venus? And why we're talking about a malefic? Although the malefic of Saturn can be explained because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So then it says, okay, so if it's a nocturnal chart, and if Mars is in the house of Jupiter, Saturn, or in their terms, or in his house or terms. So, or if Mars is in Aries or Scorpio, or in the terms of Mars, or in the 5th or 11th house. That's an interesting distinction. Or on the MC, or the ascendant, and an aspect to the waning moon. So here we see a clear distinction where it says and. So it has to have one of these above, plus it also has to have an aspect to a waning moon, which means that clearly we see that a waning moon is a good thing for a nocturnal planet or chart. But the interesting distinctions is, why are we saying 5th or 11th house? And we haven't used those in the past. In the past, we said that we want, planets to be in good condition. Is the term he uses, the first angles, which represents like the ascendant or the MC, and then they added the ascendant, MC, and the descendant, and now they're specifically saying the 5th or 11th house, the MC, or the ascendant. Why the choice of these houses? I'm not clear on. The fifth house, I guess, represents, good, the 11th house is like good luck and friends and support. The fifth house is like children, but also sort of, doing some sort of like lottery like things. But, why can't they be good for any other planet? I don't get that. So it says on the MCR ascendant and an aspect of the waning moon. Okay, so this is interesting. So then it says, or the waning moon has allotted him the rulership of the chart. Not sure exactly what that sentence means. And if Jupiter is in trine to the angles, that's a first. This will make powerful, fear-inspiring generals or tribunes ruling great regions in many states entrusted with the control of the whole world. So there's some specific things here that we have big questions on in terms of understanding, and specifically in paragraph 15, right? So the nocturnal chart makes sense. Mars in the house of Jupiter or Saturn there's a lot of questions on that. In his house or own terms makes sense. 5th, 11th house is, not clear why it's specifying that now. Also like we said, I'm not sure if it was this for Mars or a previous one. No, it wasn't for Mars. It was for maybe Jupiter, where it says that if Mars is on an angle, then it doesn't bode well for that planet. I guess there could be a distinction, when the chart ruler is Jupiter, for example. I don't know if Jupiter was the example, but if it's another planet, then you don't want Mars on an angle. But if we're talking about Mars itself being the chart ruler, maybe you want it, but I don't know. From what I understand, I don't know if that makes sense. From what I understand, if the malefics are on angles, it should be a positive. So I'm not really sure how to reconcile that. I have seen that I've heard that the angles make a planet public or shown or famous, something to that extent. So maybe it's something that's shown to the public, but not necessarily determines the quality of it or the moral elements of it. Whereas the signs that they're in or the aspects that they have more determine the terms, the quality of what it is. Maybe that's what it is. Anyways, it says 16 to finish off. But if Mars is on the descendant, sorry. Okay, it's by the 7th house. And all else is as we have just described. Okay, so all this good stuff over here, right? So all the good stuff, but Mars is on the descendant. He makes for a violent death. Whoa, that's a real quick change. Mars on the descendant always means a violent death. Wow, that's scary. But the kind of death is according to the nature of the signs, as shown in the 3rd book. So he mentioned this. This is the 4th book that we're reading. So he mentions in the prior book. If, however, he is located in the terms of Jupiter or favorably aspected by Jupiter or Venus, this dampens the heat of his malevolence. So I noticed something interesting here. He says, if, however, he's located in the terms of Jupiter, he doesn't say Venus, by the way. The terms of Venus here don't play over here. But then he says, or favorably aspected by Jupiter or Venus. Now he mentions Venus. So in the terms of Jupiter, good. In the terms of Venus, not mentioned. So I'm assuming it's not, he's not trying to say anything good about that. But the aspects of Jupiter or Venus dampens the heat of his malevolence. I don't know why he would skip Venus. Maybe it was just like he wasn't paying much attention. I don't know. Because why not? If he's in the terms of Venus, if anything, I have the same question as before. Mars as a nocturnal planet, especially in a nocturnal chart, Jupiter is not the greater benefic. Venus is. So Um, I mean, that's what I've heard from Chris Brennan or other sources in terms. I think even Firmicus Maternus mentions this in terms of dealing with house sect. Um, but yeah, anyways, Mars is a really wild planet. Um, Even when the good stuff is happening, as I said above, it's still intense. And um, Mars is on the seventh house of violent death. That's really extreme. Hopefully, nobody will have um, such terrible stuff. Hopefully, we're going to have only good stuff. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please write a comment. If you have any tips or thoughts on what we discussed, if it's a personal opinion or if you have a source, I'd love to hear because I don't have answers to these. There's a lot of questions here. Until next time, have a great day.